A little girl walks into a public bathroom in a busy shopping center. Her family is waiting less than 50 meters away. Her brother is already planning what he's going to say to tease her when she gets back. 10 minutes later, she is dead. The man who killed her wasn't a stranger who slipped through the cracks. He worked there. He'd been investigated for almost the exact same crime 3 years earlier against another 8-year-old girl and walked free. This is the case that changed Australian law. And it starts with a 10-minute window nobody thought they needed to worry about. Beat. Show title card. The 10 minutes. It's the afternoon of June 26, 2006. The Livingston Marketplace Shopping Centre in Canning Vale, a suburb of Perth, Western Australia, is doing what shopping centres do on a weekday. Nothing memorable happening. Nothing that would make anyone look twice. An 8-year-old girl named Sofia Rodriguez Uriashu is there with her uncle, her older brother, and her little sister. She asks to use the bathroom. It's the kind of thing that happens 100 times a day at every mall in the country. She walks off down a corridor, alone for maybe 90 seconds. She never comes back. What the family didn't know, what nobody in that shopping center knew, is that a 21-year-old employee, a fruit and vegetable packer, had noticed her, watched her walk down that corridor, and followed. When she came out of the women's bathroom, he grabbed her from behind and pulled her into a nearby disabled toilet cubicle. He locked the door. Sophia's 14-year-old brother was the one who went looking for her first. He called her name outside the women's bathroom. Nothing. He walked further down the corridor, past the disabled cubicle, and heard movement inside. He knocked. He said her name again. Silence. He didn't know it yet, but his sister was on the other side of that door. He walked away to keep searching. A few minutes later he came back. The detail that should have stopped him. Here's the part of this case that made people furious, not at Arthur's, but at the system around him. When police went back and re-examined the evidence from that 2003 assault, the one that never led to charges, they found something that had been sitting there the entire time. The shorts Arthur's had been wearing at the time had blood on them. The victim's blood. Nobody had sent them for forensic testing back in 2003. If that testing had happened 3 years earlier, there's a real chance Arthur's would have been in prison in June 2006, instead of working at a shopping center in Canning Vale. Western Australia Police opened an internal review into exactly how that failure happened. It's the kind of detail that turns a tragedy into a scandal, because it wasn't just about catching a killer after the fact anymore. It was about whether this could have been prevented entirely. The courtroom and the diagnosis. Arthur's legal proceedings were unusually complicated. He initially pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense leaned heavily on the fact that he had been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, arguing this affected his insight into his own actions. Prosecutors pushed back hard, pointing to the forensic evidence and the nature of the injuries as inconsistent with the explanation his defense was offering. The pretrial publicity was so intense, local, national, even international, with rumors, later formally denied by British authorities, that Arthur's was secretly a notorious British child killer under a new identity, that Chief Justice Wayne Martin ruled Arthur's would face a trial by judge alone, without a jury. Eventually, a deal was reached. In September 2007, Arthur's pleaded guilty, not to willful murder, but to the lesser charge of murder, along with unlawful detention. The 2 sexual penetration charges. What Sophia's case changed. This is where the story stops being just about one man. At the time, Western Australian law had a strange loophole. To convict someone of willful murder, the top charge, carrying the harshest sentence, prosecutors had to prove clear intent to kill. Arthur's could only be convicted of the lesser charge of murder, which meant he was legally eligible for parole in as little as 7 years for one of the most horrific crimes the state had seen in decades. The public reaction was immediate and furious. Sophia's family, working with their local church community and supporters, pushed the state government to close that loophole. It worked. Western Australia rewrote its homicide laws, scrapping the willful murder/murder distinction and introducing tougher minimum sentencing, including the ability to formally mark an offender as never to be released. Her case is also part of the reason Western Australia eventually moved toward a public sex offender register, letting parents check whether people around their children have a history of offending, something Sophia's family campaigned for over years afterward. A 10-minute crime in a shopping center bathroom rewrote how an entire state prosecutes its worst offenders. Where he is now, Dante Arthurs is still in prison, held at the maximum security Casuarina prison in Western Australia. He has tried for parole multiple times. Every attempt has failed, rejected in 2019, again in 2022, and again in 2025. He isn't due to be considered again until 2028. At Sophia's old primary school, the community raised over $250,000 to build a permanent memorial, the Chapel of the Innocents, which now holds her ashes and stands as a memorial not just to her, but to other children whose lives were taken by violence. What's chilling about this case isn't just what happened in that 10-minute window. It's everything that happened.